Hello everyone, I just wanted to do a quick video because I spotted a little problem on a few of my cacti, but this is the worst one. There's a darkening around the root which looks like it is a kind of rot or something like that. It's affecting a few of my cacti, as we can see here, but they don't feel like they're soft, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. All of these cacti were in a location where there was a lot of sunshine in the summer, very hot. They probably have got a little bit of sunburn damage, but many of them have got sort of a whitening, but haven't gone dark like this. So what I'm going to do is unroot this pot of these 4 cacti here and see what's going on. Basically, probably just put them in a new pot, and depending on what I find, I may need to do the same with all the others. So let's just get on with it. So we can see here that there is what looks like quite a good root system. Of course, we have 4 separate plants, separate seedlings. Let's see if I can separate these with one hand while holding the phone in the other. Trying not to damage the roots too much. Quite tightly bound there. As you can see, it's a fairly well draining mix I've used for this one. Some of the early plants I didn't use such a good mix, but I kind of modified what I was doing as I got more experienced. So we can see here they're all quite tangled together, but we appear to have 4 plants with fairly well developed root systems. Try and get this to separate without breaking it too much. Slightly difficult. There we go. So this particular plant is the one that is looking bad. What we seem to have is a fairly healthy root system. Looking there. So I think this is probably surface damage. Looking at the other plants, again, that's probably got an even better root system. There's a little bit of darkening there, but it's not too bad. And this one, again, fairly healthy. And this is probably the healthiest of the 4 in terms of the root system, and there's not really any darkening there. So my initial worry was that this plant, which is showing these problems, was going rotten, but I'm sure, I don't think it is. I think it's surface damage. So I think these 3 I will definitely just repot. We're coming into winter, so it's cold. I'm not going to put them in a warm or moist place, just allow them to sort of re-establish themselves. This one, I don't know. I may cut it and see what's happening inside, just for my curiosity. I should be able to use the top part to replant and regrow it, assuming that there's no rot that's gone all the way through. And I may be able to replant the bottom with that root system, in which case I'll have 2 plants instead of 1. So we will see what happens. Likewise, seeing as those look quite healthy, I think probably I'm just going to leave these ones. They don't look too bad and they feel fairly firm, so I'll probably bring them indoors. So I'll overwinter them indoors. They may just be a little bit vulnerable because they're still quite small. Yeah, let's see what happens. So I've just sterilised this blade with alcohol. Give it a moment or 2 for the alcohol to evaporate. And here is the seedling. That root really doesn't look like a problem. I'm suspecting it's sun damage on the young, earlier growth that is just on the surface, but we will see. So I can't really video this because I need two hands, but I'm going to make the cut about there, I think, which is more or less where the blackness stops, and we'll see what we can see inside. And there we have it. I would say that looks, see if I can zoom in a bit. That looks pretty healthy apart from the very surface, which is blackened. So I will replant this root and hopefully we'll get some pups that will come off and get that growing again. Meanwhile, the top part again looks fairly healthy. I mean, you can see there's a little bit of darkening there, but what I'll do is I'll leave that for at least a week, probably a couple of weeks to callous over. Temperatures are fairly cool now, so not very much is going to happen for a while, and then I'll put it in a roughly very, very slightly damp but mostly dry medium to try and get it to root, and hopefully that will then become another plant with another set of roots, and we'll get some good growth out of it, but not until the springtime when the temperatures warm up a bit. Okay. So here we are with the other three potted up. I won't water them because it's cold weather still. And here is the mix. So I'm using equal parts of earthworm castings, coconut fibre, which doesn't become hydrophobic when it dries out, perlite, and sort of coarse grit. In the past I've just used perlite, but the soil becomes a very light consistency, which doesn't tend to hold the weight of plants very well, so the grit serves much the same purpose of maintaining aeration, and it seems to have worked very well for me, but it makes a slightly heavier soil. So for this last one, I don't have any more of these pots, so I've put just a few bits of expanded clay in the bottom. That's mostly just to block the holes so that the substrate doesn't fall out the bottom. So I'll put a little bit of that in, like that, and put the plant like that, and I'm going to need both hands, so I will show you when it's all done. And there we go. So the root is fairly well embedded in the substrate. Now I accidentally tipped some of the substrate on the top, which was a mistake because it's obviously it's wet, it's subject to infection, it hasn't had a chance to callous over. I'll probably put this in a fairly dry, airy place to dry out fairly quickly, otherwise risk having rot setting in. The other thing I can do is I have some sulfur powder, which I will probably apply to that surface just to prevent any rot from happening. And the final thing I'm going to do is put some of the coarse grit on the top as a surface layer. Now, there's good and bad points about doing this. The bad points are that it tends to prevent the soil from drying out through evaporation, which obviously with cacti you want the soil to dry out relatively quickly to avoid the risk of rot to the roots. However, as I tend to find I have to top water quite a lot of my plants, if I don't put the coarse gravel on the top, the perlite tends to float to the surface, and it looks a bit untidy, and it disturbs the soil somewhat. And also, I think just they look nicer presented with a bit of gravel. I'm growing cacti to have some nice plants that look good. I want them to look nice even when they're growing, when they're small, so I will put some gravel on the top, and then hopefully we'll all be done.